encompassed everything in Renaissance Florence.
Oh, right.
It wasn't just stories. It was their history, their culture, their moral compass.
Okay.
So to have these scenes depicted on such a grand scale,
Yeah.
it was incredibly powerful.
I bet. Let's look at a few specifically.
Sounds good.
I'm looking at the panel of Adam and Eve right now.
Oh, yeah, a classic.
It's amazing how Ghiberti captures so much in one scene: creation, temptation, expulsion from the Garden of Eden. It's like a visual representation of all the complexities of being human.
It really is, and the way he uses composition and perspective to tell the story is fascinating.
Yeah, how so?
Well, you see Adam and Eve being created on one side, then tempted by the serpent in the middle, and then driven out of paradise on the other side.
Oh, wow.
It's all right there, unfolding in this one incredibly beautiful panel.
It's remarkable. It makes you wonder what Ghiberti was trying to say with his version of Adam and Eve.
Right.
Was he just telling the Bible story, or was he saying something deeper about human nature, about choices and consequences?
That's a question worth thinking about, because these panels weren't just illustrations.
I see what you're saying.
They were artistic interpretations of these really profound stories. Ghiberti brought his own perspective, his own understanding of human nature to these scenes.
Totally. And then there's the panel of Cain and Abel.
Oh, wow.
The first murder brother against brother.
Powerful stuff.
It's such a disturbing image. It's hard to imagine the skill it took to show something so raw and emotional in bronze.
I know, right? I think this panel makes us face the darker side of humanity. Even in the beginning, we see this potential for violence, for jealousy, for betrayal.
Yeah,
And sadly, it's a theme that keeps coming up throughout history.
that's true.
Ghiberti wasn't afraid to show the flaws in humanity alongside the beauty.
It's not a sugar-coated version of the Bible. It's real.
Exactly.
And then there's Noah with the ark rising above the floodwaters.
Guys,
What gets me about this one is the feeling of hope amidst all the chaos.
it's a great point. It reminds us that even when everything seems destroyed, there's always a chance for renewal.
Yeah.
The flood wipes everything clean, but the ark with Noah and his family represents a new beginning, a second chance for humanity.
It's a beautiful image. Okay, so we've looked closely at 3 of the panels, but just to give you an idea of the scope, the other panels depict the stories of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Esau, Joseph, Moses, Joshua, David, and Solomon with the Queen of Sheba.
Wow.
A whole who's who of the Old Testament.
It is, and I think what ties all these stories together, what makes them resonate, even today, is this exploration of faith,
Oh, yeah.
of trials and tribulations, of our relationship with the divine.
These
These were themes that the people of Florence would have deeply connected with.
For sure.
And Ghiberti brought them to life in a way that went beyond just religion and became something truly universal.
That's amazing.
It is.
It's like he bottled human experience in bronze.
He really did.
Yeah, it's like he took these huge stories and distilled them into these amazing panels.
Right. It's incredible.
So these panels are way more than just pretty bronze.
For sure.
It's like he captured the heart of these stories, the emotions, the struggles, the triumphs, and he presented them in a way that's both timeless and so human.
Exactly. And that's what makes the Gates of Paradise so important.
Okay.
They weren't just a religious statement.
Right.
They were this cultural phenomenon that had a huge impact on Florence and beyond.
So let's talk about that impact.
Okay.
We talked about how Ghiberti's style changed.
Okay.
But how did these doors specifically affect the art world and Florence itself?
Well, first think about how ambitious this whole project was.
Okay.
10 massive panels cast in bronze, gilded.
Uh-huh.
It was a statement piece.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It was a way for Florence to show off its wealth and power.
Like, look at what we can do. Look at the talent we have here.
Exactly. It was about civic pride, showing their devotion, their connection to biblical history.
So it wasn't just showing off.
Right, it was deeper than that.
And it was right out there in front of the baptistry for everyone to see.
That's right, not tucked away in some private collection.
It was for everyone to be inspired by.
That was a huge change from the medieval period when art was mostly for the elite.
Oh, interesting.
The Gates of Paradise were a symbol of Florence's commitment to public art, to sharing beauty and knowledge with everyone.
I like that.
So you could say these doors were like a bridge between the exclusivity of medieval art and the more humanist ideals of the Renaissance.
Makes sense. And speaking of the Renaissance, we can't talk about the legacy of these doors without talking about Ghiberti's innovation.
Oh, absolutely. His
Yeah.
mastery of perspective was revolutionary.
Yeah, how he created depth and realism in those panels.
He's groundbreaking. He was one of the first artists to really understand linear perspective.
Oh, right. So that's how he made things look three-dimensional on a flat surface. I can see it in the panel of Jacob and Esau.
Mm-hmm.
The way the figures and architecture go back into the background.
Creating that sense of depth.
Like you're looking through a window into another world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that technique, pioneered by artists like Ghiberti, became essential to Renaissance art.
It's what makes Renaissance art so different from the flatter, more stylized art of the medieval period.
It's one of the key differences, for sure.
So Ghiberti wasn't just telling these stories, he was changing how people saw the world.
Right.
How they understood space and perspective.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is. So we've got these incredible doors, this testament to Florence's power and artistry. We've got Ghiberti's revolutionary techniques.
Uh-huh.
But let's bring it back to the listener for a sec. Why should they care about all this?
That's a great question, and one we should always ask ourselves when we're looking at art from the past.
Yeah, why does it matter?
On the surface, the Gates of Paradise might seem like something from a long time ago.
Right.
But they have a lot to tell us about who we are today.
Because these stories, even though they're from the Old Testament, they deal with universal themes.
That's right. Love, betrayal, loss, triumph, temptation, redemption.
All experiences that go beyond time and culture.
We might not be facing giants or parting seas.
True.
But we still struggle with choices, with right and wrong, with the consequences of our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories on the Gates of Paradise give us a way to understand those struggles, to deal with the complexities of being human.
It's like they're showing us that even with all the changes we've gone through, some basic truths about being human stay the same.
That's a powerful realization. It reminds us that we're all part of this bigger human story that's been going on for centuries.
I like that.
And art, like the Gates of Paradise, lets us tap into that story, connect with the past, and maybe even understand our own lives better.
So it's not just about looking at these beautiful panels. It's about recognizing how art connects us to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. It makes us think, feel, and question things.
Okay, so we've covered the impact on art, the impact on Florence.
But there's another layer we haven't talked about yet, the political context.
Oh, right.
After all these doors were commissioned by the Wool Merchants Guild.
Right, one of the most powerful groups in Florence.
Yeah, they weren't just paying for a pretty piece of art. They were making a statement about their own power and influence.
Absolutely. It was like saying, hey, we're the ones who made this amazing art happen, so we must be pretty important.
Yeah, exactly.
They were using art to boost their image, to connect themselves with piety, with civic pride, with the history of Florence.
It was a way to make their power seem legitimate and to shape public opinion. It's fascinating how art and politics are always intertwined.
So these doors weren't just a religious statement.
No, they were a political tool.
A way for the wool merchants to control the narrative, to solidify their place in Florentine society.
And that's something to remember when you look at any work of art, especially one as grand and public as the Gates of Paradise.
I see what you're saying.
Who paid for it? What were their motives? What message were they trying to send?
Because art is never created in a vacuum.
Right. It's always connected to the social and political happenings of its time.
It's like a visual language that can be used to express all kinds of ideas and agendas.
Sometimes it's celebrating faith. Sometimes it's showing off power. Sometimes it's even challenging the status quo.
That's why studying art history is so interesting.
I agree.
It's not just about liking what you see.
Nope.
It's about understanding the context, the motives, the messages hidden beneath the surface.
It's about recognizing that art can be a powerful tool.
For good or bad.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like a window into the minds of the people who made it and the society they lived in.
And in the case of the Gates of Paradise, it's a window into a crucial moment in history.
A time of huge change and upheaval.
When a new world was being born out of the old one.
That's a great way to put it.
It's really amazing how these panels can be so grand and impressive, but also so full of tiny details that make them feel intimate, you know?
Yeah, it's like he was able to capture human emotion in bronze.
Right, like you can see it in Adam reaching for Eve.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And the look on Cain's face.
Uh-huh.
And the way Noah seems so hopeful when the dove comes back to the ark.
It's powerful stuff.
So before we wrap up our deep dive into the Gates of Paradise,
Okay.
I want to leave you with something to think about.
I like it.
Something to spark your own creativity.
Sounds fun.
We've talked about how Ghiberti took these epic Bible stories and condensed them into these incredible panels.
Yeah.
But what if you had that same task? If you had to tell a complex story in just one work of art, what story would you choose?
Ooh, that's a great question. It makes you appreciate the decisions Ghiberti had to make.
Right.
Which scenes to show how to put them together.
Yeah.
How to use composition and perspective to pull people in.
Would you focus on one big moment, like the creation of Adam?
Or maybe try to combine multiple scenes like he did with Adam and Eve?
Exactly. And what about the medium? Would you stick with bronze, like Ghiberti? Or would you go for something completely different?
Well, that's interesting.
Could you tell a powerful story with a painting, a sculpture, a tapestry, a photograph, a piece of music, even something digital?
Wow, the possibilities are endless.
Right.
That's what's so great about art. It's always changing.
I love that.
Ghiberti was inspired by the artists who came before him, and then he inspired so many others after him. It's this amazing chain of creativity that goes on and on.
That brings us to our final thought.
Okay, shoot.
The gates of paradise show us how powerful art can be.
For sure.
How it can tell stories that people connect with for centuries.
Totally.
But it's up to each of us to find the stories that speak to us.
Yeah, to find the art that moves us.
Maybe even create something ourselves and add to that artistic conversation.
That's a beautiful way to put it. The gates of paradise aren't just a relic of the past.
No.
They're an invitation to join this conversation between artists and their audiences across time.
And they remind us that art isn't just about pretty things.
Right.
It's about ideas, emotions, stories.
And the things we all experience as humans.
Well, that's it for our deep dive into Ghiberti's Gates of Paradise.
Hope you enjoyed it.
We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll keep exploring art with us.
Until next time, keep diving.
Keep diving!